Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today, my very special guest is Mr. Ricardo Miller, who is running for Red Oak City Council, Place 3. How are you doing, sir?
Man, I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to come on your show and for so many others.
Oh, I appreciate that. I told every candidate this cycle, thank you for wanting to serve your community in this rough and tumble thing called the politics of Ellis County.
Yeah.
It's admirable. It takes a family. It takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of effort to run for council, and so that I thank you for wanting to serve your community.
Well, I'm looking forward to the journey. I've been a person who's always been committed to serving, and so I'm looking forward to this opportunity.
So, Ricardo, Red Oak has grown. There's a lot of new people. Maybe they don't know you, or maybe they want to know you. Can you tell me about you?
Yeah, thank you again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ricardo Miller. I am a devoted husband. I am a father. I am a pastor. I pastor at Pathway of Life Church in Dallas, Texas for the past 17 years. I've been the operations and development pastor now with the responsibility of managing all of the various affairs as to what's happening on our campus. In addition, I'm a life coach. I'm an author and I'm a consultant. I love Dallas Fort Worth, but more specifically, I love Red Oak, and I'm so glad to be here in Ellis County doing life.
You know, it's a little bit of a change, and that's a pretty impressive resume. Life coach and all that. That means you do motivation and you do it well, and
Thank
that
you.
is quite a skill. And pastoring, that's the number one thing. I mean, serving God can be a labor, and it's a beautiful thing. That said, why do you want to run for Red Oak City Council?
Man, when I think about that question, it's all about serving my community. It's all about serving my community. For years now, I've always leaned on the idea that if you live somewhere, you should serve where you live. Or if you're a part of an entity, an organization, or a group, meaning even from a staff standpoint, the question should be, am I adding value? And so my wife and I, we live here in Red Oak. We love Red Oak. We love the direction the city is heading in. And we understand that the growth and development that is going to be happening in Red Oak over the months and years to come is not going to slow down. But Red Oak is going to need individuals to step up and say, I will serve and give assistance to the management of all of the affairs which are part of what this position holds to ensure that equal play is at the table. And so I love the city and I love to serve, and I wanted to extend my service to the city.
With candidates, I kind of try to like to get to kind of some of the core. So I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you, what is the proper role of city government in the lives of the people?
The proper role for city government really lies within this whole concept of proper representation. Really, that's really what it is. Proper representation to erect ordinance in compliance to what is proper and needed for the city. It's approving budget. It is allocating proper projects and services and responding to the needs of the city. And equally so, it's hearing what is needed from the community, and then it is trying to manage the growth and the development of the city. And so that's what I believe the responsibility is.
You know, there is, and you had alluded to it. There's growth. There's a lot of stuff. One of the things that come up every year is, oh my God, my tax bill.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you that don't know, your school district is the highest part of your tax bill, and then comes the city, and then comes the county. But the city does take quite a role in your mortgage payment when your taxes come due. So, in order, when you're serving, if you're elected, you're gonna decide tax rates. So, can you tell the people what are your thoughts on taxes overall, and how will you approach taxes every year if you're elected?
DV, one of the things I've realized was that a lot of people get frustrated for what they don't understand. And taxes is one of those things. A lot of times people don't understand. I won't claim to know it all in regards to taxes, but what I do plan to do is get an understanding. I believe it's super important that we educate ourselves in regards to whatever our lives are about. And for those of us who hold office, we should know that office and its responsibilities to the fullest. So, with that said, I believe in taxes should be fair and it should be wisely used. Now, that would say fair and wisely used. You know, all of us have a different opinion in regards to what those two words are. What is wisely used? What is fair? Fair, you know what I'm saying? What is fair? And so for me, I will take the approach of one, educating myself as to where we are in regards to our taxes, and I'm learning a lot about that right now. But in addition, this is a key thing for me: education. It's not only educating myself, but I'm talking about educating the community. A lot of growth and development is happening in our city, but unfortunately, a lot of people are just seeing growth and development, but they don't understand it. They don't understand the process for growth and development. And what happens is what we don't understand, oftentimes we get frustrated about.
Yeah, yeah. How important is transparency to you? Because you're talking about, people not understanding.
Yeah.
How important is that relationship if you were elected to council? How important is involving the community in your decisions?
I am a big advocate about community involvement. As a matter of fact, I've been meeting with some HOH presidents, and I'm like, you know what? We need more HOH presidents to host meetings that will allow city officials to come by and educate their communities about what's happening. Once again, I believe in total transparency. I believe in accountability. I believe that people should know what's going on. But cause if they don't know what's going on, the day they wake up and they feel bad about what's going on, it's going to come from a feeling. And oftentimes feelings and grievances comes from the uninformed side of our brain. And
Yeah.
so we have a lot of people who are talking aggravated and very frustrated, but ill informed, uninformed, ill informed, not aware of why. And I believe the whole idea of why needs to be brought to the forefront. So, with that said, our once a month meeting isn't enough. We do have a monthly meeting, but I believe there needs to be continuous opportunities being provided to the community where people are informed. Here's where we are, here's where we were, here's where we're going.
Right. And when you mentioned accountability,
Yeah.
one of the things that you're going to have to do every year is well, every time you're in a meeting is deal with city staff.
Mhm.
And nothing wrong with city staff. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you're going to have to hold them accountable. You're going to have to hold yourself accountable. And you might even have to hold others on the council accountable. Talk to me about your thoughts of on accountability.
Well, I think a person should never take a leadership position without being prepared to be held accountable and to hold those accountable to which he or she covers. And so for me, I believe accountability is a must. I think it's a must. Now, what I believe helps accountability is understanding. Again, I believe it's really important for me to understand who you are and what you're responsible to do, and then you need to understand who I am and what I'm responsible to do. I'm not coming for you. I have a responsibility and you have a responsibility. And our both of our responsibility is to serve the city, is to serve its citizens, those local individuals who call Red Oak home. We want to make sure people love where they live. I love Red Oak. Now here's the deal. If we don't hold people accountable, then a lot of things will happen that will ultimately not make us proud of where we live or call home.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one of the things that I see online and during budget time is hey, we might be spending too much, et cetera, et cetera. I want to know how will you approach budget time when you're because if you were elected this time, you're probably going to come either somewhere around the middle of the budget or towards the end. You're gonna come in when they're working the budget of the city. How if you're elected, how will you approach the budget every year?
I believe we have to study the budget. We have to become very informed in regards to the numbers, okay? Where we were, where we are, where we're going. And a lot of times the numbers reflect could be where we're going or the mistakes we made in the past. And somewhere along the line, we're trying to fix some things, right? And so, how am I going to approach it? I'm going to make sure that I know what I'm dealing with before I sign and agree to stuff. And I believe that's really, really important. Not only should I know, but I want to make sure that the people who are putting those numbers together are thinking through the process of establishing these numbers to be the numbers we're trying to put forward. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our city is not one where people feel the burden of mismanagement of funds. Mismanagement of funds bring the burden on all of its local people and businesses and ultimately cause people to not like their city. I think Red Oak has the potential to be one of the thriving cities within the Metroplex. And I want to be at the helm of helping to manage that to be a reality. But what won't happen is if we don't look at our numbers right, and not in comparison to others, but properly knowing what our numbers are and what our numbers need to be for us to go where we need to go as a future, as a city.
If you were elected, Ricardo, what would be your budget priority? You're in general, because you can't speak for a whole council ever.
Yeah.
There's several other members, and you got to work together. And I'll get to
Mhm.
that. But what would be your every time when you approach every year? What will be your priorities?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to keep people safe. I think we have to keep people safe. If you don't feel safe, man, come on. You find that people will leave, good people will leave, and we don't want that. So I'm a strong believer. First responders, police officers, I think the police department, fire department, hats off to what they're doing already. But I believe that we need to make sure that we're funding those areas respectively. Secondly, I believe that infrastructure. We want to keep our city up to date and on par with what is needed to keep us progressively serving those who live here and those who are doing business here. Now, with that said, there's a lot of growth happening within our city. So when we talk about budget and we talk about growth, it is impossible for us to not think about upgrades. And when cities can build only for the concern at hand. Today, it has to build with the whole idea of growth and time working itself favorably for us. So when it comes to the schools, when it comes to the parks, when it comes to police department, the fire department, when it comes to sidewalks and roads, all of those are necessary, and it's going to cost us something to keep those up to par. And so, one, we have to be good stewards. We have to manage really well what has been allowed for us to utilize to run this city. And then, last but not least, we just have to decide, you know what is the priority? And for me, I like living in Red Oak because I feel safe in Red Oak. And in addition, I like the fact that Red Oak continues to show itself that it is progressively moving forward. And I believe anyone who is trying to fight the idea of progressively moving forward is going to lose in these days we're living in because everything is changing. Change is inevitable, and we have to be prepared to embrace that. So, with that said, safety first, infrastructure, and proper personnel. We have to hire and pay those persons we have hired to be the best at what they do, so that every 2 and 3 years we're not losing good talents because the other cities that has more money than us can take them from us. Because you know this, DV, it's easy for you to live in one city and work in another city that can pay you according to what you perceive you should be compensated. And so I believe we need to take care of our city employees. I think we need to train and develop them in a way that they feel good too about being a part of what's happening in Red Oak.
You mentioned growth. What are your opinions on how Red Oak is growing, and would you like to see something different?
Well, I looked at the numbers the other day, and I think it was diversity split is. I mean, it's literally amazing the breakdown on diversity within our city. The number of homes that came into the city in the last 5 to 10 years has just been incredible. The Metroplex is on a boom. Okay, the Metroplex is booming. I mean, literally, people are coming not only from across the country, but literally around the world wanting to come and live in Texas. I think we have to become good managers of what we are responsible for in regards to doing life in Red Oak, Texas. We have to become better managers. It's all management. And so management is attached to leadership. So we need good leaders to manage us well so that we can sustain and we can work well with the growth and development that is happening within our city. So what do I believe about the growth that's happening? I believe the growth that's happening will be good for us as long as we have good leaders and we have great management. And I think both of those are coming together. And I think ultimately, if people get an understanding as to what's happening and why it's happening, and possibly participate to ensure that it happens correctly, boy, our future is going to be bright.
Participation is a big key because the voting in Ellis County is abysmal. I mean, they could be better,
Yeah,
and you get the government that you participate in.
most
If
certainly.
you're not participating in your government, you got no reason to complain. It's just you. That's what it is. Um, Infrastructure, you had kind of touched on it a little bit. Infrastructure had been strained, and there's a bunch of construction. There's always construction.
Yeah.
You got Ovilla Road expanding, and you got concerns about how the new schools, and I know that's the ROISD lane, but how it's the schools are going to affect the roads. So that's where you kind of that's where they both the city and the school kind of go in there. And there's concerns about infrastructure. Can you speak on that?
You know, it's interesting. I've heard people say, I'm open for growth, but I'm not open for change. And I'm like, it's impossible to get
It's
growth
impossible.
without change. You know, so you get more homes, you get more wear and tear on the streets. You get more people living in Red Oak, then you get the police department being a little bit more challenged with regards to the amount of people that's not only living in Red Oak, but there are people coming through Red Oak to do life, right? So when it comes to infrastructure, we have to stay on par to make sure that we're taking care of what we have and we're developing according to growth to ensure that we don't get frustrated because we're not beating the curb of growth and development that the city needs. With that said, here's the challenge here. Today, people may complain about some level of road construction that is causing there to be a backup, but that road construction is a setup to set the future rail to have a better position in regards to dealing with traffic. So when we talk about infrastructure, we talk about a middle school right now that has really so overcrowded, right? So eventually you're gonna have to get the expansion of the school. You got these streets that has to be expanded. You have all of that movement that's happening within our city. What do we have to do? We have to manage better. But here's what else has to happen in managing better the growth that's happening within our city. We have to have an understanding. I keep playing back on that word because most people, DV, most people I'm meeting that is frustrated about almost anything that's happening in our city don't quite have the true full understanding. And here's what I know. I'm not grieved and frustrated about the things I don't even like right now in Red Oak because I know that I've now learned more than I've ever learned in the last 2, 3 years of having sat at the table and talking with people from the police department, talking with educators, talking with those who are doing business in the city. And once I got an understanding, it shifted my perspective. And so I think in regards to infrastructure, we're going to have to make sure that we help people to understand growth is here and growth is going to be here for a long time. We're going to have to manage that growth. And then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bring in the infrastructure to sustain the growth in a proper way so Red Oak could be a beacon of light in the Metroplex. This is a city we need to be proud of. If you bought a home in Red Oak, you should vote in Red Oak. If you vote in Red Oak, then guess what? You should manage your affairs in a way to ensure that you are equally adding value to this city. This is a great city, but it happens best with all of us coming together to do our part.
Talk to me about business because there are a lot of businesses. I mean, that movie theater just opened up, and there's other businesses that have come from Shipley's to there's a lot of different things opening up, and Red Oak is growing. So, talk to me about your perspective on business.
You know, Davey, we need businesses. I mean, there are more people moving to Red Oak. There are a lot of homes that have come and have built that has been built over the past few years. But here's the deal. I'm so grateful for the movie theater that just came in. I salute those who are sitting in the seat to ensure that we bring businesses to Red Oak to make sure that the people in Red Oak can enjoy life in Red Oak by doing business in Red Oak. Do you know there was a time when you could have lived in Red Oak and couldn't bought a T-shirt in Red Oak? You know, you had you couldn't enjoy a nice meal at a nice restaurant, and now, like you said, we can go to the movies, and with all these young families coming to Red Oak, all of these homes with children and teenagers and young adults. The question is, where are they going to work? Where are they going to enjoy the everyday life one should experience within the city that they live in? If we're going to have community pride or city pride, we're going to have some businesses that are here joining forces with the local organizations like that of schools and NGOs to ensure that Red Oak is a place not only to live, but to enjoy from a small business standpoint and other large retailers coming in. I think it's a great day for Red Oak.
These businesses, the good thing about them, and they bring their issues, but the good thing about these businesses is that sales tax revenue. When you have more sales tax revenue, there's opportunities for using less property tax
Yeah.
revenue in your budget, and that I'm sure everybody would love to get a little bit of property tax relief in that respect. The- Red Oak is changing.
Yep.
The population is changing. There's different diverse views coming in. There's different diverse people coming in.
Yep.
What if you're elected? What will you do to make those people feel welcome?
You know, my slogan for this election is growing together, building tomorrow. And the reason why I say growing together is because we have to accept the fact that there is no one group of people living in Red Oak. There, you know what I'm saying? Red Oak is becoming a melting pot. Okay, there are, and with that said, leaders and entrepreneurs and individuals who have chosen to buy their homes and live here in the city, we have to learn to get along and do life together. So, with that said, I believe that we need to have moments of educating each community and helping people to understand who is their neighbor and how can we ensure that we don't only live in the house and do life outside of the house, maybe in the metroplex somewhere else, but we know how to do life together. And that's one of the reasons why I like the different events that the city hosts, because these are opportunities for people to come together. We're going to have to learn to come together and understand each other's differences. There will be differences, but we have to learn how to respect each other's differences as long as it doesn't break the law and as long as it doesn't violate who I am and who you are. We have to learn how to respect and appreciate people for who they are. And so the growth that is happening here is definitely bringing a lot of different personalities, different belief systems, different ethnicities. Well, how do we do best with that? We don't be judgmental. We educate ourselves properly to figure out who is here and how do we do life with them. You know, the library, I serve on the library board here in Red Oak, and it hosted an event. It's Human Library, the Human Library. And the concept of the Human Library is you get to sit across from a person and really just talk to them and learn who they are and where they came from. And once again, I have to say this word, and that is, boy, it's amazing when you get an understanding. Wisdom shows up to bring honor and respect to those you're having to deal with.
Yes, yes. Understanding definitely brings that. Before I give you the mic and shut up so that you could talk to the people of Red Oak, I'll ask you about Parks and Rec. That's one of those things that you'll be voting on. Maybe you'll need a bond to fund a park or something. What are your thoughts on growing out with recreation in the city?
With all of the young families that are here, if you see the size of our schools, I mean, we need parks. We need recreational centers that allow families to feel as though, you know what, I can take my kids to the park and play basketball and play soccer and baseball and all softball, so forth. I believe that those they come along with all that is happening within our city. Now, it's going to cost to do that. It's going to cost to do that. And to do it well, it's going to cost. So, in other words, managing our city is going to demand that we look at park and recreation, we look at business, we look at what's your safety, we look at the concerns of small businesses, we look at the concerns and the need for big businesses to be here in our city. I believe more than ever that this is the hour for one, the city council to come together to draw up a vision, a plan to move our city forward and to ensure that everything that we need to have a thriving city be brought to the table to keep our city healthy. And that's really what it's about. It's about developing a healthy city that people could be proud of. And I believe Red Oak is heading in that direction in a phenomenal way.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I could have you on here all day, but people tend to tune out after a while. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and step aside and give you the mic so you could talk directly to the people of Red Oak.
Thank you once again for having me. When you think Ricardo Mill, I want you to think three things. I want you to think devoted leader. I want you to think fostering unity, and I want you to think empowering progress. I want to see us growing together. I want to see us building tomorrow. Now, what that's going to require is that's going to require that you put someone in office that will serve you. I'm not going in there for personal interest. I have no gripe or no beef with the city or with no one. I just believe in serving. So I live here. I love living here. Now I want to have the opportunity to serve here. And so if you are listening to me and you're a voter, I want to encourage you to please vote for me. Early voting and on election day. Vote Ricardo Miller. I promise you, you won't be disappointed.
And if you want to know more about Ricardo Miller, he does have a website, and I'm pulling it up right now so you can see. If you want to know more about him and his positions, I mean, he's got this website and it tells you more about him. You can look it up, and I've had it scrolling, ricardoforredoak.com, ricardoforredoak.com. Great site. Ricardo, like I told you, I love that first name. It's just awesome. I appreciate you coming on here and talking to the people of Red Oak, and I wish you the best on your race. Can you stick around after the show?
Most certainly. Once again, thank you for having me.
Thank you.